Alan came to our house after the meeting 2 years ago and literally changed our lives.
Thanks to Barbara and Jim had a few phone calls back and forth, so I'm sure. The purpose of me really here is just to help you create a brighter, more secure future for your child. And as I said, this will all be based by going through the workbook. Now, how the workbook came around is Dolores Crowley, who works with me. Dolores is a mum. David has cerebral palsy. He's like 18 now. So Dolores very much came from the mum perspective. As Jim said on the introduction, it's my niece Laura. That's how I kind of got into this whole area. And again, it was the complexity of it. Nobody was able to kind of guide my brother Pierce. So therefore, I kind of took it upon myself. I set up Financial Wellbeing in 2008, and as I said, it's from there then I kind of put all this information together, hopefully, so that parents then can see the steps that if they put in place, they can create that kind of better future for their children. Okay, if we all just turn, and we're just going to go through, as you can see on the content page, there's lots of material to cover. Now it is quite an informal talk. I would, if you have questions coming up, certainly just ask as we're going along. At the end, I'll kind of have a bit more of a question and answers when I get through all the material. And certainly if we kind of get stuck, I'll keep pushing because I do want to try to get through as much as I can today. So we're going to start on the first, which is on page 3, which is on entitlements. Now it's very important you maximise all the available entitlements out there, and I'm sure you are, but again, it's no harm, just for a couple of minutes if we go through here and just check that you're getting everything's available to yourself or your son or your daughter. So we start off seeing child benefit. If you want to just fill that in for yourself, child benefit, as you know, got cut in the last budget, so it's 130 per child, so 260 or 360. So just write that in for yourself. The only reason I'm mentioning it there, because it says if your child is under the age of 18 and not in full-time education, you're still entitled to child benefit. So it might be your scenario, it might not in today's day, but certainly something just to note there. Domiciliary care allowance, okay. That is not a means-tested payment. It's given to children under the age of 16. The reason it's given is because the parents prove that their son or daughter needs substantial care, and that's the word that they use. And what it means by that, say for instance, every 8-year-old boy or girl out there will need care from the parents. But again, when you put the proof that they need substantial care in, for instance, they have to go to speech therapy, OT, private reports, back and forth to doctors. And once the parents can prove that there's additional care, then again that will be granted. It comes in place and it runs away at age 16 and it stops on the button at 16. They don't forget it, just in case you're wondering. I've yet to come across it. But you'll see on the button it'll stop on 16. Carers allowance and carers benefit. Carers allowance is a means-tested payment for the parent who kind of gives up work to be the full-time carer at home. Carers benefit is again similar, but it's based on your PR size, based on the kind of PR side contributions. And if you have sufficient contributions, you can get the carers benefit, and that's not means tested. A couple of things there. Carers benefit, what I find when I work with parents and we talk away, is that generally you have a 2-year period you can take. Okay. Now, a lot of times I see from experience, parents will say, get a diagnosis, they take the 2 years and kind of almost regret it. And what I mean by that is that you should always try hold carers benefit. So if you're on carers benefit at the moment, I suppose what I really want to do is when you go away, is it the right time to take it all? Or maybe you might say, look, I'll hold 6 months back for maybe there's an operation or transition through school or some other period that might be better to use it. So certainly just take your time, because the minute the 2 years up, that is your 2 years. Carers allowance is not 2 years, it just runs right through. Once you qualify under the means, so you have to produce a financial statement, your bank account, what income's coming into the family, second properties, anything along that size, and if you qualify on the means tested payment, then that stays in place. As I say, going forward, it doesn't stop after 2 years. If you can get carers allowance or carers benefit, always take carers allowance. Again, it just holds your care benefit for some stage down the road. So, and the other thing as well, there's additional benefits come in with carers allowance. Respite care grant, remember that was cut again in the budget. I'm going from 1,700 down to 1,375, so if you want to write that in for yourself. Okay, that again is not means tested, it comes in automatically with your domiciliary care allowance. Here's a lot, what I seen, actually it was only last week, I was with a lady, and she was coming to retirement, and she hadn't claimed carers, respite care grant from the age of 16 when her child turned 16 onwards, because she didn't think she'd qualify. Now you can actually get respite care grant beyond the age of 16 if one of the parents isn't working more than 15 hours outside of the home. Okay, so just watch that one. You know, it'll stop automatically with your domiciliary, but as I said, you know, it'll stick if you have carers allowance, but if you don't, you can still get respite care grant if one of the parents doesn't work over the 15 hours. Incapacity child tax credit, that's a tax credit there from the revenues, $3,300 a year, extra you can earn without paying tax. So that's a big tax benefit, and certainly you can backdate all revenue things as well, so you can go back 4 years on that. Your medical expenses, remember you have your general medical expenses going to your doctors, you have your prescriptions, you have maybe speech therapy, OT, any private professional therapies you go to, again you can claim that back on your tax. A couple of things that wouldn't be too commonly known would be, for instance, say, a lot of clients we say in Cork who may be travelling to Dublin, to the hospital for treatment. Again, you can claim a mileage when you have to go beyond your local area for hospital care. And you can also claim overnight accommodation as well. Say if you have to stay up in Dublin as your child is being treated, then again you can claim that on your tax as well. That's a parent thing. You're the parent and your son or daughter has a disability that is a permanent disability. Now the revenue will say it has to be a permanent disability. And again, yeah, you can claim beyond the age of 16. You can give once they live at home. Now if they move out of home and go into independent living or just move away from you, then obviously you can. But once they're under your roof and you're providing care, then you can. Okay, we'll just change over there. Home care's tax credit. That's just an additional tax credit you can get if one of the parents isn't earning over 5,000. There's a sliding scale, it's up to 6,700 and then it stops. But to get the maximum 810, one of the parents isn't earning over 5,000. Now, carer's allowance is ignored in that calculation. Okay, just as I remember, there's a lot of carer's allowance and carer's benefit, just something between us here today, just to know they are both taxable sources of income. And I mean, hundreds of parents who sit down, and the families would never realise that innocently. It's just a thing you wouldn't realise, but they are taxable sources of income. And all I would say to you is that going forward, certainly would make it my option for just to inform the revenue go forward that you have now a taxable source of income. You'll find if you're on carers on, it really doesn't affect it. By the time you have incapacity tax credit and all that coming off, it wouldn't really be much of a tax issue. But certainly just to be noted that, because you know the way the systems are getting now, the revenue quite quickly can just pull everybody up, and we'll all be getting lectures and fines and stuff out the door. So just something, just to know.
You have to notify them then every year?
No. Once you notify, you notify as changes happen. So
oh, right, okay.
You notify on that side. VAT relief. If you buy any medical equipment, and a big thing at the moment I'm doing an awful lot is iPads and tablets. You know, the iPads, again, if a speech therapist has recommended an iPad for communication aids, then you're quite entitled to claim the VAT back on that. It turns to becoming a medical device. It's no longer then looked upon as a leisure item. And you can also claim it on your Med 1 form. Again, so the key there is to get a professional speech therapist or somebody to recommend that your son or daughter would benefit from the use of it. And as I said, then it's no longer a leisure item, it's a communication item. That's what you can claim back on that side. But if anybody wants to do that, just send me on an email. I can send you on the forms that you need to do as well. There's no problem. So I'll be giving up my email and stuff. So
That'd be for a laptop as well.
yeah, computers. Again, if it's recommended, if it's recommended. You just got to be very careful in the sense, make sure it's not a leisure, no, it's not like a family computer type scenario. Certainly I would say it has to be, specifically for your child for homework, communication, and that side. But you can do it with computers as well. Dirt tax relief. Your son and daughter is entitled to have their bank account without deduction of dirt. Now, you mightn't even know, but dirt tax is 41%, meaning that any interest you make in your bank accounts, if any, today's deposit rates, 41% automatically is taken out and passed over to the government without you knowing. It just happens kind of automatically. But again, your son and daughter is entitled to have that without the deduction of dirt. So again, something to note on the bank accounts going forward. Be aware, I'll be talking a little bit more on it. They'll give you one thing, but just be careful, just in case you're all thinking, oh, I'll be putting my savings into their name tomorrow. They're not that silly. There is a catch to it. Homemaker scheme. Homemaker scheme is actually very important, in particular if one is then full-time carer. What you find is that if you're full-time carer, you're not paying into your PRSI. So therefore, the last thing you want to do is when you come to retirement, I know you all look like you're miles away from it. But when you do come to retirement, I turned 40 this year, don't start with me. When you do come to retirement, you do not want to go into a means-tested area for state pensions. But when you're looking after children, and in particular from the age 12 onwards, a child with a disability, you're quite entitled to claim credits for those years you're out of work. So that fills up the gap and starts back claiming it on that side of it.
How do you know about that?
Again, what you do is, I'll send you the numbers, but you just ring up and get your social record sent out to you, and it should already be credited, and if it's not, then you let them know you're a full-time carer, and then they'll start giving you credits at your last.
Yeah.
Okay, medical card. Medical card is actually a means-tested payment. So again, you have to produce the financial statements on the medical card, and if you qualify as means-tested, then you actually get a medical card. I won't go into too much today. There obviously are discretionary medical cards which are getting far and few between. They're just going a huge slide downwards at the moment from where I would say 2 or 3 years ago, I would say nearly the vast majority of my clients have them. Now it's just slipping down, and it just seems to be a no constantly at the moment. I've no understanding why. There's no kind of, the normally you would see and you can understand why one parent is getting another, but there's no logic behind it all. It just seems to be random at this stage of the discretionary kind of card coming out there. Certainly what I'm saying to my parents, I'm saying, look, is your child on a lot of medication? Then you have to fight for it. Do you know what I mean? If your child, we say is autistic and is quite healthy, then is it really worth the argument? You know what I mean? So again, I would say that yourselves, if they're on a lot of medication, argue, fight your way for it. But certainly, it's a right GP visit card. That's just the free GP visit you pay for all subsequent medication. It's just a higher threshold. The long-term illness card, again, that gives you the free prescription type scenario. You can actually have a medical card and a long-term illness card, and some people wouldn't be aware of that. The major benefit of the long-term illness card, there is no prescription charges, but again, the most valuable thing is the medical card, as we spoke about earlier. And the drug payment scheme there, that's for any family. Any family should never pay over $144 a month as a family unit. So maybe the husband is on high blood pressure, the wife's asthmatic, or the children, the mix. It's just as a family unit, you're never to pay over $144. Dietary supplement. If your hospital consultant has prescribed specific dietary requirements for your child, again, there's a means-tested payment you can receive. Alternative to that, you certainly can claim it back on your Med 1 forms as a tax relief on that side. We keep going over on page 5. The nappy scheme there, that's there from the age of 3 onwards, and it's basically a supply of nappies, so many nappies per month from the age of 3 onwards. And again, get onto your local kind of health nurse, and he or she should get you into that whole area. Free travel pass, automatic when you have carers allowance. What you find then when your child turns 16, if they have a disability allowance, then they can automatically get the disability allowance at that stage.
Can I ask a question on the free travel pass? I'm a carer for my daughter, and I received the free travel pass. She didn't.